What were some of the most challenging aspects of doing this exhibition?
Very challenging. Something to do with gender, of course, is challenging, and it's the first one, and you never know this is going to open tomorrow to the public, and what the reaction is. But my guess is that in Thailand they say this is art, this is part of art, no problem, But it's not that kind of hard-hitting, rude, explicit show. You know that it is more how artists reflecting their lives, their society in a way. And we came up with 130 works by 58 artists from 15 countries. And I didn't have any kind of preconception or preconceived ideas on what we will get. But it turned out that's what it is. It's very interesting how people talk about things, and I realized that I actually could put them in about 8 categories from growing up, which is important. Growing up, can't take that for granted, the difficulties of it all. And then later on, when they reach maturity, so is their art, they still talk about this subject matter. Or rather, some established artists came back and talked about this subject matter for this show, so it's very personal for them. And by which time they are so mature, and they have made great art out of it in a way. And it's a story to be told because it's about your own personality, it's about human rights, diversity. All this is social value, after all, without which society is going to be so much poorer in a way if you don't talk about it. The title is actually has a kind of a dialogue in front of it, so we would love to get this into a dialogue with people. As I said before, we have about most audience actually between 15 and 25 years old. They're quite young, and so this could be a good subject for them to look at. The Thais are quirky and naughty in some certain ways. They're not very serious about things, but if you did open like this, it might be better. It's more accepting in a way. Okay, we have to accept that people find it, we don't know what it is, diversity, they don't know what LGBTQ really is all about. So let's just have a look what's all about. You have a big theme, and then I'm afraid that to understand it, you have to get into the artist's statement, because they all go off into really interesting area. And surprisingly, they talk about their reaction to their culture. Surprising or not? Because culture and traditional culture tend to be the status quo, of course. Some's good, some's bad. It gets bad when you are forced to be this, that, and the other. It's good if you have traditional culture, which is more liberal in a way. I'm making this point as well because certain traditional culture is actually more open, more tolerant. And of course, in the last few decades, there has been a kind of backlash of something more radical, more restricted in a way. For instance, when you have work by Yopi Peter from Indonesia, talking about the closing of the traditional transgender school. Traditional transgender school, that's pretty impressive because they had this school especially for them. Now they're closing it down. What else? People, Dinh Kule, again, talks about, in Vietnam, censorship, and he doesn't want to, I suppose, lose it, but he has, his work is actually based on weaving, traditional weaving, from his grandmother's time, but there's a bit of a kick in it because there's, in that video photography he has hidden a lot of curious details. I know. So these are the artists who have made their name, and yet when they come back to the theme, they have done quite a great work out of it. Aurin as well. I mean, he's not known as an LGBTQ at all, but suddenly he decides that something has to be done because it's so much part of him. A terrible story, and then he not this story actually, he has it a kind of almost a document like accompanying him the images of the 5 screens, which is, as I said, you transcend your issues, and his so-called, I call it the Venus of Urbino, reclining body is a triumph.
It's very beautiful and powerful.
It's surprising when he comes back into this issue to resolve certain things. Otherwise, he does something else, in his career. So many stories, and of course the young people. I picked up this we call him Ball, that quirky thing coming out. Before he comes out, he gets everybody else to come out first, exposing themselves. His teacher, his friend, and taking photographs of them naked. And this is me. I come out, and he goes out. He comes out with other people, symbolically 50 districts of Bangkok, and representing the flowers, by the flowers. That's quirky. That's the way we are.
Yeah, it's very fun for sure.
Yeah. Well, then what else? There's plenty of something like this. So.
Yeah. LGBTQ art, or like art that talks about LGBTQ issues, versus artists that are in the LGBTQ community. And then I also learned from Patrick that sometimes there are artists who are part of this community, but they do not want to be, they don't want their art recognized as such, or they don't want their identity to be how we talk about them.
No, you're quite right. I mean, this difficulty, we have people from the Islamic countries who do not want to be known through because it's dangerous sometimes. And then artists do not really want to be categorized as gay artists, of course, or lesbian artists. But on the other hand, this show perhaps saying is that this is a hugely valid point. It's not about gay, not lesbian. It talks about diversity. It talks about marginalized people, and it talks about human rights. It talks about life so much that we should really, this is universal, is it not? Because one time or another, each of us will find ourselves in becoming a minority, marginalized. Put yourselves in their shoes to see what happens. It's actually something about you, and certainly it's about your society as a whole. True? Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
So it's nothing to do with just, this show is not just about for LGBTQ community, not at all. Yeah.
And I think it goes beyond this idea of educating as well.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
And Arinod, another Thai artist, discovers that the Thai textbook talks about gender, man, woman, how it stereotypes everything. So there. So it's just a learning curve for a lot of people, in a way. Yeah.
And somehow I feel like Thailand and Bangkok was a very ideal place to have this discussion of Southeast Asian, the survey of Southeast Asian LGBTQ artists.
Well, first of all, probably there'll be less difficulties in putting it on, and especially BACC, as I said, receptive to diversity. We don't know yet about the reaction of everybody else, but it's a good ground because it connects itself with all kinds of communities. Don't you think? In Southeast Asia in general. I suppose choosing Southeast Asia coming from Taiwan, which is more Sinosphere, opens up a lot more, and that's why we had to work so much more in you know, finding artists. And Southeast Asia is very mixed, you know, based on many cultures. So suddenly you've got so many backgrounds, and how do you weave them all together? And then, you know, this kind of marginalized minority subject matter is actually, that will tell you a little bit more about all those societies in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reflecting it all back.
I have to say I learned a lot.
Yeah. And looking at from the frame, you know, from the, you know, curve. You know.
Yeah. I learned a lot just hearing some of the artists share their own stories before, during the tour.
I know, I love that, but we didn't have time to listen. So in a way, I arranged the exhibition so that you have a big wall text, and then you have the 8 sub-themes, and then you have to get into the artist statements in that way. What you heard were really the artist statements. So that's how the show should be viewed. We got to work hard in communicating. We have quite a few of the tour people, you know, working for us. But to make it interesting, you really have to get into leading people into all these subject matters. It's a lot of it.
How do you think how do you hope people will receive the exhibition after this opening?
I think they'll come and look at it, and I won't, so a little bit of giggling, you know. But never mind. We hope for the best. Yeah. I can't tell. Yeah. We've done something like this before, but not as a huge big show like this.
It's exciting to see. I did notice the young age of the visitors earlier, upstairs in riffs.
Yeah. But you can't do things without, you know, going a bit more forward and enlarging the frame a little bit more. So all for the best, really.
Thank you.